I think that's my cue, Mr. Mayor and Councilman. You've been patient as we paraded mayors and, in one case, a councilman from 6 cities all the way from South Miami to your fine city and actually passed it from our standpoint. This is a historic day. Very soon we expect Congressman Curbelo to arrive. To have a congressman, state representative, mayors and representatives from 6 cities all the way to South Miami come here and tell you how we feel and how strongly we feel that there has been a breach of trust. That was the article in today's Miami Today. I recommend it to your reading. Representative McGee was quoted as saying this has been, in fact, in reality, a breach of trust. The same thing has happened with the tolls. That's a breach of trust. These are highways that were built 20 years ago. They were paid for 20 years ago. Now we have to pay $8.50 to get from one part of the county to the other. That's a breach of trust because, as Representative McGee said, you cannot afford to have a minimum wage job from one end and travel from one end of the county to the other. You're giving up an hour of your wages before you get there. If you take public transportation, assuming it comes anywhere close to your home, and then we charge for parking. Can you believe that? We don't even have first come, first serve. Free parking, at least, for these folks. This is a breach of trust that is historical. That's 30 years of history. Mayor Wallace already stated the story of his son, and it isn't just the time that it takes, it's the cost that it takes. Again, a little bit more than $8 to go back and forth. I have a member of my staff that comes from the west side of Dade County, and Joanne is here. Joanne, would you stand up? This lady, it takes her the better part of 2 hours every day. And she has to have somebody give her a ride to the first stop, which is the bus and then Metro Rail. And we can't communicate when she's on Metro Rail because she's too shy to use the cellular phone. So we have to text. But a lot of people are like that. I mean, the rest of us, we have our automobiles and, the tolls are no big a deal for us. But they're a big deal for the working class of this community. And a book that I just completed and that I'm going to send to each of the members, my good friends on the council, and yourself, Mayor and Vice Mayor, I explained that about 0.5 to 1% of the unemployment rate is due to the cost of transportation. People would rather have what economists call voluntary unemployment than take a job that's going to cost you the first hour of your day in either tolls or public transportation, assuming you're anywhere close to a Metro Rail or a Metro bus stop, and assuming it doesn't take you, as it does to Mayor Wallace's son, more time than it takes to go to Fort Pierce, as he was telling me the other day. Mayor Porter said something to me the other day that I want to bring into the discussion. A busway or an alternative to it called a BRT, even if it's a true BRT, which is really defined as something that the lights are synchronized or timed better for the buses to traverse, does not really solve the problem. It doesn't solve the problem, among other things, as Mayor Porter was telling me, because the traffic in an east-west direction then gets stalled. And so we have the same traffic congestion that the rest of us experienced in Dade County. US 1, you know what we call that up north? I don't know if you call that down here. Useless 1. I wrote a letter to the mayor as soon as I was elected in 2011, the same time both of us were elected, and I said, as I get out of downtown and I get on US 1 and I get to 17th Avenue, we have condition F, growth management condition. Former Councilman Joe Corradino, who has taught me most of what I know about transportation, and I'm pleased that you have him here as Development Services Director, is aware of what that means for downtown people. We can't get, in my district, we can't even get to 17th Avenue. Sometimes it could be half hour or an hour just to traverse the first 20-some blocks. Now, as stated by Mayor Wallace and some of the other mayors, the cost of transportation is prohibitive. 22%, as per the Miami Herald article, 22% of the disposable income of people in the middle class in Dade County. I see my assistant Javier there. By any chance, do you have, I'm stalling for time a little bit because Congressman Curbelo is about to arrive. The rendering that I wanted to, in the renderings that we have put together of what this transportation system could look like, there's one that happens to have a stop at Cutler Bay. So Mayor Bell, if you would give it to the mayor back there. This is in honor of your city. And this is not just pie in the sky. We have funding sources. We have funding sources. Yes, yes, that would be nice. I don't know why my assistant put Cutler Bay there. There's a certain preference for the mayor. But you're welcome to take that to City Hall. I want to tell you briefly, because they're going to say, do you have the expected ridership that is required for what is a substantial investment? Not unaffordable. It's affordable with 3 funding sources that are in your packet, and I'll go through them very quickly. But I want to tell you a story of what happened with the People Mover. This is a true story, not exaggerated one bit. I was asked by Mayor Clark, as mayor of the city of Miami, to testify at the EIS hearings of the Urban Mass Transit Authority in Miami when the People Mover had to be approved with federal funding. We know that we don't have as much federal funding as we used to have in those days from UMTA or otherwise, and that's why we're very attentive to the arrival of Congressman Curbelo, because I think he whispered to my rep, Kiani McGee, something to the effect of 30% of the funding might come from the federal government. And that's a lot more than my former assistant, Congressman Diaz-Balart, who's been saying that maybe you can get to 20%. So I'm hoping that Curbelo will raise the stakes here. But the story is very simple and a very interesting story. UMTA said to us in Miami, you cannot afford, and the federal government cannot afford to build a Metro Mover because our estimates are that it costs $14 per mile per rider in that system. And so I told Mayor Clark, I'm going to do my best to argue against that model, that mathematical model. So I walked in and I said, I don't quarrel. And by the way, they said, for that amount, you can take a taxi, you know. And I walked into the hearing and I said, I don't quarrel with your denominator. I know your calculations of cost are correct, but I quarrel with the numerator, your ridership estimates. And I said, I think we're going to have 10 times the ridership. So the true equation here is $1.40 per person per mile, and that's cost effective for this system. So as I walked out, someone from my staff said, Mr. Mayor, where'd you get that figure? And I said, I pulled it out of thin air. I want you to know that even though I pulled it out of thin air 20-some years ago, today the Metro Mover is the most successful component and the only really efficient component of the entire system of public transportation in Dade County. And recently, an effort by 2 commissioners to impose a fare was defeated 10-2. We have finally gotten religion in the county. We need public transportation. We need it to be affordable, preferably free.
Commissioner, can I ask you one question?
Yes, sir.
I've got a couple of questions from the dais. I know you're looking to stall a little bit. Can we ask you a couple of questions, Mr. Williams?
And the funding sources are in your packet.
Right.
The most recent one is the one proposed by Representative McKee, which is to take a substantial amount of money from the MDX. By the way, he proposes 30% of their revenues that are not bonded out. And believe me, I have poured through their finances, and they can afford a lot more than 30%. They're bonding, the debt service is $62 million, and their revenues right now are $130 million. So I'm sorry, yes.
Mr. Williams.
Thank you so much, Mayor. And I was willing to wait till the presentation was over before I asked the question because I wanted to have a full grasp and understanding of the mechanism in which what the presentation of what you all are asking as a united body to do, number one. Number two is that I've heard that from a state level and from, you know, a cohesive group of mayors here in Miami-Dade County, along with yourself, Commissioner Suarez, about a few things. And then, of course, you stated about the federal government. Where is it in the transportation in the House or the Senate as it relates to the state? Where does the state fit in this? And then what I don't hear from the equation or in the equation is our state senator. Is he involved, White Bullet involved in this or in this coalition? Where is it at in the House as a state, you know, funded mechanism that even in the gridlock at the state level of where we with this bill, or is there a bill in the House or in the Senate as a companion, and then those who represent us in South Dade, our state senator, where is he at on this?
Well, coincidentally, I managed to make a quick stop at the senator's office on the way here. You know, if you're coming to Homestead from the east end of town, you got to start at about 4 p.m. to be sure to be here at 6. So I was able to talk to Senator
No,
Bullard.
you have to start at 3.
Yes.
If you're coming from Liberty City, where I work.
There you go. We have the congressman here too, so I don't have to stall as much, but I do want to get into the funding formula to answer your question. The part that deals with the state of Florida is not really discretionary to the state of Florida. What I did is I made a public records request of the state of Florida as to what we sent from Dade County, Miami-Dade County, in terms of the license tag renewals every year. It's $167 million. I made a public records request. How much does it cost to do the one thing that we get from them, which is a little sticker, you know, that you put in your tag? It took them 2 weeks to figure it out per sticker. It's 5.88 cents. So I said to the legislators, to the legislative delegation, the state can keep the 5.88 cents and the cost of mailing it to us and give us the rest of the money. This is a micro analysis of the equation that we're always looking at, Mr. Councilman. This is an analysis of what we give versus what we get, and finally done at a level that is easily understandable. Now, I do have to admit, 60% of that money is earmarked for education by the state. I don't want to mess with that. That still leaves 40% or $61 million in the formula. The other $81 million, besides the money from MDX that Representative McGee is by the way, the vote in the legislature, I think he had it at 20% when he first proposed it, without any preemptive attacks on some of his colleagues, et cetera, et cetera. He got 54 votes on the first try. That's pretty close for this House of Representatives, okay? Without casting any aspersions. Now, the part that belongs to us, to the county, and I'm embarrassed to say it, but I did have a meeting with my chairman of transportation, Commissioner Bobo, is the $81 million that we're taking from the half-a-cent sales tax to fund our Metro-Dade transit system, instead of funding it from general revenues. Our budget is $4.4 billion. I don't even want to get into the issue how much we spend on staff, because the congressman's here. So
can I let me readdress my question?
I just want to say that on that issue.
Let me just
yes, please.
Restate my question in another way. Where are we in the state? Maybe this question is not for you. Maybe it's for our Representative McGee. So
no. He came up with the idea of the MDX money.
Let me
on the
finish
House
my
side,
question.
On the House side.
Let me finish my question.
Sure.
Where are we as it relates to our Senator Dwight Bullard and all of this that we're doing? Is he on board with this?
He told me he was, but I have not presented the whole plan to him. Now, part of the plan is to take some of that money that we send in the license tag renewals to the state of Florida. On the Senate side, I look, Councilman, to the, my senator, my representative from my district, both of whom support it, and they think there's a really good chance next year that that will pass, that we'll be able to get 40% of the 167 million. As to the 81 million that goes into the county MDT, that comes from the CITT, that comes from the People's Transportation Plan, the half cent, Chairman Bobo, in a sunshine meeting with me, pledged to me that we could, over 5 years, which is typically what it takes to plan, design, and implement one of these, take back the 81 million. So you got 81, you got 61 from the license tag renewals, and you've got another 20-some million from MDX money. And Representative McGee tells me that that's moving very well. Remember, in the House, there's a lot of support for squeezing MDX for other reasons from the Republican side, and there's a lot of support from the Democratic side and from all of us for using some of that money for public transportation. We're just building more and more highways, and cars can't even get through. So I think the formula is very doable. And as to the federal government, I will defer to the congressman who was.
So what are you expecting out of this tonight? Is just to give us information, or what are you expecting us to do? Or what are you asking of me personally?
I really was responding to your resolution that was sent to me, supporting a light rail connector. And I want to add one feature. JC, the folks in the audience have seen it, but I want the council members and the mayor to see it. For light rail, the concept that I'm putting forth, besides the rail connector and the, could be a streetcar, besides that, we have a trail above ground, a bike trail above ground with solar panels. If I didn't have anything about solar panels, I think Mayor Stoddard would kill me. That close when it rains, so that bikers can come all the way from Florida City and Homestead all the way into South Miami without getting wet. Otherwise, people really cannot use bikes to go to work in a place like Miami, where all of a sudden we might have a downpour. If I can defer at this point to the congressman.
Let's get the congressman up here, please. Thank you.